the integrator can become invisible, right?
Yeah.
And you really need that trust and that they're available and that they're the ones servicing after, that you're not getting the phone call. Sometimes you do, but that they're going to be there in the pinch. You know, if they put these speakers in, they're having a graduation party and it's not working that morning, you know, you need someone to call. Today we're going to talk about things on the luxury market that are invisible, hidden, and motorized. And I'm sure many of you have utilized some of these products, but we want to introduce you to some new ones and what's coming ahead in the future for things to be hidden. So I'm going to start by introducing our panel. I'm Tara Pavia. I work for a master builder in New England. We have a very niche market, very high scale, high-end luxury living. And I worked for an integrator for 6 years and now a builder. So I know just about enough, but I do know the importance of the integrator and the builder collaborating very early in their projects and looking at the plans, and also the client to be involved in seeing these showrooms and getting introduced to things they don't even know. And some of these products are invisible. They may not have known that their speakers could be hidden in a wall. And even though some of these have different costs and price points, once they experience it, many times they want to involve it in their home. So I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves, but first off, we have Paul with ETC.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Biava. I run ETC in Florida, which is a luxury home integrator, primarily dealing with high-end homes.
Rob Lawrence. I live in Texas. I cover the Southeast for Legrand, so manufacturer. I call them builders, the integrators that service them. I've been with that company for about 8 years, responsible for about 8 of the brands we own.
Hi, I'm Larry Barnes. I work with Arthur Rutenburg Homes, franchise in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm probably going to be bringing the perspective of, we've talked about this and I've talked with several of you guys. We're kind of in that middle range, the 2.5 to 5. So my perspective is going to be not really quite jumping into the integrator, and some of our perspectives on how we get from A to Z with some of these technologies.
I think it's a great mix, though, for this panel to have the integration, product, and builder, because how that all kind of works itself. So we'll start here.
Okay. So I don't think I'm going to necessarily show anything that everybody that's in this room doesn't do already, but just kind of talk a little bit about how, when you're talking to a client and you're talking about the solution selling that we're trying to do now more and more, it's good to have, some examples of how you can hide that technology. A lot of our clientele simply, we get that quick response that says, I don't really want any control, or we don't need anything in the house. And so our job, I think, is to educate them in, it's nice to be able to have some level of control or some level of automation and integration, because if not, then, you don't want to be walking around your house turning off 50 lights, right? So these are just some examples of some of the things that we've done recently. And I listed a lot of the different things that we can do, as an integrator for a client. So speakers are the obvious one. You'll see the pictures that I have up there have the frame out of the invisibles and how it progressed to the end product that the builder did on this beautiful oceanfront home. The wiring next to it, a lot of people don't think about what's happening behind the walls, but all those wires combine together and are packaged so that they come out with a beautiful rack. Which is also something that, when you're working with a builder, you need to think ahead of time, because, they always leave us you just put it under the stairs. And, when you talk about the size of what you're doing, it requires a rack room. It needs to be, you need to talk about the heating, the cooling, et cetera. So it's just interesting how when you look at tech, it's not just about, hiding the speakers or hiding, maybe an access point, but it's also about how do you prepare the room where you're going to be controlling all these things, because that's a lot of what allows you to be able to run these products. The motion, the environmental sensors, there's another photo coming up that shows a little bit about how you can hide those into ceilings as well, and so that you can monitor the wellness, because wellness is such a big thing. We've been talking about that a lot this meeting. The motorized window shades, it's the basics of making sure that you work with the builder to do the pockets and get those installed early. And then security systems are becoming such a big part of all these homes. How do you not have, a bullet camera sitting there that everybody's looking at that, is not pretty, and nobody wants that to be part of what they're doing. All of these things come down to, I think it's easy to accomplish if you just plan ahead. So this is all about getting into the conversation with the designer, with the builder, early on in the process.
I do have a question though regarding the invisible speakers. So does the client get a little concerned, like, wait, you're mudding over, you're painting over these speakers, what if something goes wrong? How do you fix it? And what is the warranty if something has to be replaced?
So it depends on the manufacturer, on the warranty. We obviously run a labor warranty. We'll go in, and generally it's a year that we do a labor warranty on those. They ask those questions. We have to talk with the builder about access and how do we access those units if that's necessary. In some cases when you're doing it in the ceilings like that, you do have to set up an access point someplace where you can get in through the attic, if it will. And some people, the nice part about the invisible speakers now is they do in fact last very long, right? You don't really run into issues with them. So they're built well, and the quality of sound has improved dramatically. I mean, from where it was 5 years ago even, you wouldn't know the difference between that and a typical 6-inch or small aperture speaker in the ceiling. It sounds really good, especially when paired with an invisible subwoofer as well. So.
And how much space do you need to install?
You're asking me installing questions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't mean to, but sometimes, no, it's interesting because we do a lot of renovations in like brownstones, and
Right.
we have like this much space, and sometimes, we just need to.
It's not much. I mean, you can see here, there's not a lot of space in between, where that frame mat is. It's less than you need for, let's say, a Ketra fixture, which has a deep, kind of a deep housing. So a little bit less.
Great.
Yeah. Over here, I think I wanted to just talk about what you can do with lighting, and lighting is such a hot topic for our industry. The top shows you a house that we did, which was actually, it was the largest Ketra installation at the time. We did 270 fixtures. They did Ketra on all their eaves on the outside because they wanted to be able to do this different color changing. And so you'll see the first picture shows, just regular, this is what the house looks at night. And then come July 1st, it automatically switches to the middle picture, which is that red, white, and blue. Starting on December 1st, it automatically switches to the red and green for the different scenes. He's got a button inside the house. He's a big Gator fan, so it'll turn orange and blue for when there's a game going on. So it's all the kind of stuff, again, you wouldn't think that house, if you look at it just plain, you wouldn't see that it has all this functionality. So that's kind of using lighting as a hidden technology.
And I actually consider lighting invisible because the only time you really notice lighting is when it's too dim and you can't do what you want to do, and it's too bright, it's hurting your eyes. And like the balance of that, and with Ketra, for instance, there's so many ways of dimming and putting colorways in that it should be the thing that is enjoyable and not intrusive on your day to day.
I think that's a really good point. One of the things that we do a lot of in Palm Beach is art lighting. And you can take, just add a little bit of hue to a Ketra bulb or a Legrand lighting bulb as well. And you can change the whole look of that art. And, in some cases, the clients have asked us, well, can you give us the same lighting at the time that it was painted? And there's a way to be able to find that kind of geo coordinates and say, this is the lighting that you would have had at that time frame so that the art is pure. But all that is unseen, right?
Exactly.
And then you wouldn't know that there's a little bit of green or a little bit of red hue in the art. You just look at the art. And that's where, again, the technology and the lighting can really be impactful.
Yes.
At the bottom, this was a condo project that we did with a great builder down in Palm Beach. And I wanted to show how in the vent returns and that little kind of black line in the middle, you'll see little white lights in there, and next to it are the air conditioning returns and intakes. And so the entire house is done that way. It was really a unique project for us because we had to mock it up and figure out a way to make sure that we could get power into those, power and cabling. But again, that partnership with that builder, he came into our warehouse, I gave him a space, we mocked up the ceiling, we were able to show kind of proof of concept. But it looks just beautiful, and the whole house has that level of detail behind it. So I just thought it was interesting, another way that you can hide it, in your own HVAC, with that as you're building it out. So. And
the cove lighting is beautiful, and I didn't even get to go on the show floor, but I saw the linear lights can be in different colorways, so when they're there, you don't see them until they're illuminated.
Yeah.
I just think that's on a design level brilliant.
Yeah, so much, and lighting has become so flexible now. There's so many things you can do with it. And really the color component of it, obviously the examples up top are very, very, intense.
Dramatic,
but
yeah.
you can do just little hue changes and put, little bits of color in to create an entirely different atmosphere. So I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to share that. That was a project that we just finished up. This is where I was showing this house has a beautiful kind of latticed wood ceiling that they did. And you'll see the cove lighting behind that a little bit. We did sensors up in there as well. And there's actually a small aperture speaker that is painted to look just like the ceiling as well. So
Yeah,
again,
that's great.
sometimes with paint, you can do it as well. And then the lifts, we do so much with lifts. And I think it's one of those basic technologies, but, put and used correctly.
Innovative.
It really can be innovative. And this was a condo that had this beautiful kind of wall of windows in the bedroom, but they wanted a television. There's no place to put the TV. And so we have it just coming right down from the ceiling. And it then, when it tucks away, you don't even realize it's there. It's just hidden, and you still have the beauty of being able to look out. And then underneath there, this is also from the condo project previously. They wanted a TV in the kitchen. And again, working with the contractor, we were able to figure out a way to put the lift inside that stone island. And so when they want to look at TV, it just, a button and it pops up. So I think that's, just a few examples of some of the things that you can do, but it really is about early collaboration and working with a builder early on to be able to say, the client wants to have technology, but they don't want to see it, right? And you and I were even talking about, the dreaded Sonos speakers that all the integrators, they're like, it's such an easy entry point. So retail based, Leon makes a beautiful tone case that, encases them in wood and then, adds to the design aesthetic of, where you have to place them. So there's all those little tricks of the trade that if you work with your integrator early on, I think they can help really kind of hide the technology.
Yeah.
I think the Sonos guy has a question.
Yeah. I love Sonos and I have it, but a lot of people just don't want to see the Frisbee or saucer.
Right, exactly. Or, or just have the speaker sitting there. So you can hide, in plain sight. And I think that's part of it. So, but that's kind of my view on some of the technology and how to hide it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I didn't know if you want to add some lighting information. In all fairness, he got added in the 11th hour here, so I'm really grateful that he's joining us. And I just think there's an opportunity maybe to talk about lighting and what you're seeing, what you're selling, what clients are wanting.
Well, and again, the lighting division is not the one that I'm on.
Yeah.
So we do, like, as far as us, I'm more on the infrastructure side. So talk about, hiding in plain sight. So we partner with Sonos, for instance. So when the inevitable speaker, instead of, like you said, being just sat out or just hung up, what do you do with the power? We make a lot of innovative solutions for that stuff so that they do hide, the power and only things like that. Also with, like, the displays, maybe not completely, back caving it in an island or anything, but for us, like your frame TVs, things like that have an exterior brain. Where do you put that? Get ahead of the time. We make boxes that go right behind it for heat dissipation, locally have that, right there. So it'll hide that component piece. It'll allow you to kind of just, hide in plain sight was a good way of putting it. So that's really kind of the accoutrement that we sell over on my division. So
Yeah, great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So just to give you a little bit of background, my main career has been really in two stages. Wolf Homes for 18 years. I was the guy on the ground trying to figure all this stuff out and making the mistakes and trying not to make them twice. 12 years ago, moved to Raleigh, became the president of one of the AR franchises, Monterey Bay, Raleigh. These are just a few of the projects, just kind of give you a sense of the scale. When I started thinking about this presentation, I couldn't help but think 30 years ago, what was the technology? This is the first great room that I did in '97. And, we were limited by built-ins on either side. There was no HDMI. There was no Internet of Things. Televisions got to a size where I remember when they couldn't be 24, they had to go to 27-inch deep because the televisions were so deep. You couldn't do anything remote because, there was just not the technology there. The lower pictures of family room, an upper family room, not exactly the same time frame, but that was the first Crestron, full Crestron system. And I remember they called it football. It was the remote that was about 5 pounds.
Yeah.
But if you notice off to the left, we had to build something about the size of a Honda Civic to hold the television and the tower speakers, and which was all great at the time. But obviously, we've moved beyond these limitations. The technology is certainly gotten us to a point where the great rooms, our plans, we pride ourselves that our lineage is out of Florida. So it's a lot of open floor plans with a lot of indoor-outdoor living. The great rooms really are flex spaces. The families want to live. They don't want to necessarily see the technology. They certainly don't want to see the speakers. The great room walls, there are about 4 or 5 different locations where we always touch and redesign our standard plans. The great room walls are one of them. In this case, it was floor to ceiling, large format tile, artwork displayed. That's a pretty typical great room. Again, there's technology all throughout that you try to hide above beams, invisible speakers, and things like that. The upper family rooms, everything has to be multiple use. The club room can be the bonus room, can be the playroom, can be the media room. So we're not being asked for full-blown surround sound media rooms like we were in the past. We do them every so often. That's actually kind of the next slide. I'm going into the technologies that, kind of the categories that I came up with. Accent lighting. This was really a highlight of that technology. Fiber optic twinkle lights in the ceiling, LED backlighting for custom stained glass inserts, speakers behind the acoustic panels, step lighting, butt kickers in the seats. So it was, at the time, it was kind of everything that you could throw at a room. You then kind of staying on that same idea of lighting. This was one of our recent kitchens where we introduced these oak inserts into the kitchen, and it's important. This gets back to the coordination in our world. And again, this is the perspective of someone that's not using an integrator, and how we relay all this information to our project managers and our construction managers and keep the client happy, and everything at the end of the day turns on and is fine. This particular project, these lights are 45-degree extrusions with the diffusers on the front side. Trying to coordinate with the designer is, what are you going to be displaying here? What it brings about is the conversation: is it uplight? Is it downlight? Is it front? Is it back? It's all important. What color is it? Is it dimmable? We're not getting into the whole RGB thing as much. Not many Florida Gator fans in North Carolina.
Do you ever work with a lighting architect or a placement?
We need to, but as of yet, in Wolf Homes, my previous life, we did, but we've not here recently. So a lot of that is on our shoulders.
Right.
We do have an in-staff designer that has some expertise in that as well. The other is the under-counter lighting, which is pretty mundane in our world. But it used to be 5 years ago. It was just the standard fixtures. It's important for us. These are all extruded along the back side of the cabinet, so you get continuous light even across the cooktop. You can see another 2 things to note in this picture. The hood. More and more we're being asked to hide the hood. That was a 17-inch deep best hood that allowed us to keep everything on the same plane all the way across the run of kitchen cabinets. And then lastly, the pop-up in the island is becoming more and more popular. Bathroom lighting, pretty typical. This one was a shelf underneath with lighting. And then, I don't know, everybody's got different terms for these. We call them clouds, but we're introducing in our standards a lot of drop ceilings and coves, and there's all kinds of approaches to that. Some better than others. We've made a lot of mistakes, but we're starting to dial those in. But lighting and accents around the perimeter of some of those drop downs. And then off to the right, this was just an RGB project, wine rack that in a bar area. Mirrors, products like Roburn, Build Right, they're becoming more and more common. A lot of times they're hiding, obviously they're dressing mirrors with light switches. In some cases, we're trying to wire those into the house so you can turn those on as you come into the room. Roburn is kind of known for the medicine cabinet behind the whole mechanism lifts up and shows the medicine cabinet behind. In some cases, we're doing these on site. These are mirrors that we just drop, pull off the wall and then run lighting around the perimeter of the mirror. This has got wall perimeter lighting. It's got the under counter lighting as well. Something, and we had a little bit of a conversation on this earlier. This is a television behind the mirror. We're not getting asked for that much anymore, and this was a pain. Well, I can say this on camera, pain in the butt back in the day because the televisions were so large, and none of them were really set up for being behind a two-way glass mirror. So you'd have to paint everything and try to get it sealed tight so there was no light intrusion. But the televisions were so deep, it was really kind of a pain. It'd be much easier now, but nobody's doing it. We haven't been asked to do this in quite a while. And I guess we were speculating it's possibly because of just the phone and technology being, but anyway. Shades, it goes from the simple, which is very straightforward, non-motorized, same motorized. You start then incorporating it into the architecture of the house, the valance. This one actually had the blackout, the regular shade or the screens, the drop screens, and then also the panels was all incorporated into the valance in this particular house. And then the clouds.
Oh, and I'm just mentioning part of that invisible is quiet motorization. It makes a big difference. If you start hearing the shades go up and down, it's part of that white noise of everything. And it's important that the client understands what they're choosing and what it sounds like. It should sound like nothing.
Right. Yeah. And that comes with coordination.
Yeah.
And again, I think the common thing we're going to be coming back to is collaboration up front and trying to plan for this. All of these have to be recesses. Not this particular project, but this one certainly is all recessed. They have to be framed and accounted for with the engineering beforehand. What are you pulling? Is it line voltage? Is it low voltage, et cetera?
And some manufacturers make some longer than others, so understanding how long you need it and what needs to be done to...
How many square feet, right? And then the lifts, the obvious, the furniture. This particular one was a niche. It was kind of an English pub kind of feel. Television came in, down from behind the header. We've had appliances, the projectors, kind of everything that most everybody has seen. This was motorized sliders. This was a 35-foot Fleetwood door. Again, a ton of coordination with this just because of the sheer weight of the door, where those motors and mechanisms and what their power needs were. This was a product, I don't know if anybody's familiar with this, it's Magic 2. It's a 5x8 slat white oak barn door with hidden, you see no hardware.
Yeah.
Warming drawers in bathrooms. We did a motorized backsplash, showing spices and utensils. 2 unique projects. We custom built the bed for this bedroom, backlit onyx. All the Lutron controls were all brought to both sides of the bed. Had 7 televisions in this room. All of them were hidden. One was in the footboard. Also had an air intake, and it blew air under the sheets.
Wow.
So it's wild. This was 21 feet tall, drapes. It had lights around the ceiling details. So it was a pretty involved bedroom. Same residence, that was one of 3 dining rooms. And the interesting story there was the chandelier. It was the chair furthest away from us. He wanted to sit in that chair and be able to see the television. So we had to mock up the chandelier and the angle that the television would be where no one else could see it. And then he had a directional speaker, like museum technology, a directional speaker that you could hear it sitting in that chair, but if you stood up and walked a foot one way or the other, you couldn't hear the television.
Well, I don't know if that was the same client with the escape shoot on his third wife.
No,
because if you have a TV at dinner and, not engaged, but you can share that story.
I was telling them I had a client that had to install a access door in the master closet with a grab bar and a circular slide to the crawl space. He was on his third wife, and we were pretty much convinced he was working on the fourth one and needed a means of
Escape.
escape. So, and then we've had,
I know.
You're hidden.
I know, really.
and then other the distribution area, is big now that technology allows us to get that away. Heating and cooling, obviously, we have to pay special attention to that. Panic rooms, are large. We had an island in the master closet we had fabricated on a metal rod that the whole island would pivot. And there was an entrance from the basement, but this was a secondary entrance that you could come down and drop into the panic room from the master. It was a 3-story house, and they wanted more immediate access into the panic room. So things like that for sure.
Speaking of the main closet or walk-in closet, so much is happening now. It used to be a place of just hanging your clothes, but now it's a place where you spend time, and not knowing about the panic room, but it's from the master closet.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the rods are now lighting up, and there's
Chandeliers.
Even closets as you walk by are lighting up. And I had a client who in the closet, they had a green blazer, went outside and said, I want my green blazer to look just like this in my closet. So it was about getting the lighting just right. And we had prompts on, his lighting was catwalk, outdoors, and red carpet, right? So he could see what he would look like in the environments he was heading towards. So there's a lot, and I still consider this the invisible elements, because lighting to me should be invisible, and again, you only notice it when it's going wrong. And even music, I feel as though these adjustments and having the right integrator to adjust sound and have it be at the levels in which the client feels comfortable, because you feel uncomfortable if it's too loud, and if you can't hear it, your body starts to react to the environment. So.
And we talked a little bit about process in our pre-talk. We're fortunate in that our franchise program, we get 25-page plans, full electrical plans. But what's become apparent over the course of the last 5, 6, 7 years is those are antiquated. Mm-hmm. They're giving you the basics, but we're required now, not required, but we are doing a separate checklist, a separate red line session with our clients, solely on lighting, on accessory lighting. We haven't gotten to a point where we've now factored that into budget, but what they're seeing is our inventory homes, our models, where things like that kitchen, that's expectation now on just about every level.
Is there a time when your client comes in and is asking for specifics, or they have a wow power because you're showing them what is available? Is it a mix, or how? Are people aware there's invisible speakers? Is that a known thing from every client, or are they seeing things for the first time?
Yeah, I think mostly seeing for the first time. They may have heard of it, but they don't understand it. And so in our conference room, which is kind of our showroom, we have the typical round 6-inch speakers, the small aperture, and then we have invisibles. And so we'll take them through a demo. And, when we go to the invisible, they're like, well, still that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's completely different. We have a TV in there that we have built to surround sound, all invisible speakers in the wall. Okay. And so they turn and they go, well, where's the sound coming? Where's the sound bar? Where is, so it is a aha moment.
Yeah.
And then, you walk them through that same process. Just look, you don't need this everywhere, but you can put it in your hallways. You can put it in your family room. You can put it in your master bedroom if you don't want to see the speakers. And the price points on those have come down to be similar to a small aperture speaker. The round in ceilings are still the least expensive. But if you want to have some of that ability, then yeah, it's great to show that off. I mean, there's no way to explain an invisible speaker,
right?
Except to hear it
Showing it.
and seeing it.
And the
What's
quality
crazy-
of sound.
Yeah.
And what's crazy to think about is I remember a specific client that said, I don't care if there's not an equalizer in it. I want an equalizer. I want to see stuff.
Right. Yeah. You had something there that said you want to see the tech you invest
you
in
want to
now.
Yeah.
right?
You don't want
Yeah.
to hide.
Right.
Everybody wants to.
Power speaker,
Yeah.
definitely.
That's very true.
I thought it was interesting. You mentioned you don't always work with an integrator, and I just kind of want to hear more about that. And after hearing some of the things this week, is it something that you're going to try to bring into your?
We've tried a couple of times.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's you keep limping along. We're just like most builders. You keep doing the same thing that you keep doing. So every time I come to one of these, I come back thinking, this is going to be the time we're going to get there, because it's a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And we've done a pretty good job. The team is tight, and I think we've dotted a lot of I's and T's. But it's the stuff that's out there that we're not doing,
Right.
that we could potentially be doing.
There are some great consultants that will come in and consult and actually choose or recommend or bring in some integrators that would be a good fit, or have the right kind of showroom, or have the products that your client may be looking for or don't know about yet, right? Because it is so important for them to be a part of that initial planning stages. You don't want to think about invisible speakers after the ceiling goes up or whatever it may be. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I know some people.
Yeah.
Happy to.
right. Right.
And I think to where Rob was saying too, with just some of the infrastructure things that you can do, putting the box in ahead of time, making sure that, so many places you go into a house and you've got that rack that's holding the TV, you see all the hardware, everything else. Just a little bit of planning, you're able to put that flush against the wall, which is what everybody wants, is to try to, hide that TV, but they want it large. The TVs too now, the short throw projectors, the quality of those is getting incredible. Epson makes some fabulous products on that, as does Sony and Barco and everybody else. But the short throw, where it just sits like right there, right on the wall, and you get 135, 140 inch screen, and you can even project it without having to have a screen up there. You can just project it on a white wall or a blue wall, and it still looks unbelievable. The quality of the picture is really improved. Again, somebody may be sitting there going, well, I just don't have the space to do a projector, and how do I get a projector to come down, or a video wall? They're cost prohibitive. These Epson projectors are, I don't know, $5,000. And you can buy a salamander. Where you hide it in the furniture. So it's all very, sleek and elegant. And it works for those smaller spaces as well too. So it's all that stuff that, clients, you kind of want to walk them through. I always feel like my job is to make sure they're aware of everything that's out there and what we can do. And then, it's a budget conversation, but you have to present these different options. I think that's where technology is, going, is the more you hide it and the more that you can present as far as options.
Yeah.
So
Early's always better too. It's always going to be a budget discussion. At one point, they are going to want to upgrade their AV experience in their home. You got the bricks and sticks to worry about. You bring the integrator in, they're the expert. They meet with the manufacturers. They're on the forefront. They're able to talk to these people. They're able to say, hey, listen, you're going to spend it one way or another. We're not going to build a Honda Civic, case, but whatever the new technology will be, get into it early.
Yeah.
Because you are going to spend the money, and you're going to spend more money later. And if you're lifting that, and I'm not saying you can't do it, but the value of the integrator is always the fact that they are doing that stuff in your time and your mix up, your mess ups and your go backs.
Right.
Yeah.
There's
There's certainly other things that I need to be focused on, and the team can be focused on.
Yeah,
If
you go roof it. He'll get there.
Yeah. Lately, we've been getting projects, and the client is bringing their own integrator. And I always say the good news, they have an integrator. The bad news, they have an integrator. And I really feel as though the builder needs to meet with whomever they're choosing, so that this collaboration and working together, because when it starts being, they're not working parallel, it can get really difficult, and there's tension between the integrator and the builder.
we talked about that, it comes down to trust.
Yeah.
Builders don't typically trust very easily.
Yeah.
Show me and prove yourself. And because of that, I think we tend to push that off and just keep limping along doing doing what we're doing. So that's certainly one of the hurdles that you got to get over.
Have your clients brought you in before the builder or architect? Have they?
It's sometimes it's a mix. What we run into being a second home type of thing in Palm Beach is that they bring their integrator in from New York, or they bring their integrator in from the LA, and and again, we can always partner with those different groups. The thing that you talk about, and it's not really with this topic, but it's where the first topic that we talked about is the service. Once that integrator goes back, how do you maintain it? Who are you going to work with? And so in some cases we've worked with an integrator, say, look, you guys do the install, you got that relationship, I get it. And then, we'll take over the service and let's partner that way so that there's a long-term, relationship that you can start to build.
It's relevant because the integrator can become invisible, right?
Yeah.
And you really need that trust and that they're available and that they're the ones servicing after, that you're not getting the phone call. Sometimes you do, but that they're going to be there in the pinch. If they put these speakers in, they're having a graduation party and it's not working that morning, you need someone to call.
Yeah. And again, I think that's the challenge in our industry, is, you want to try to service your client because they're your client, but, you're based in, 1,000 miles away. That's something that I don't think our industry has figured out how to do great yet. But, companies like Bravis and Daisy that are putting these, big networks of people together, I think that's eventually what we all have to do, like find those partnerships that you can go, call this guy or call this person.
Right.
So.
And as far as invisible spaces in which you need an integrator as well, we just recently did one of those cold plunges, and it was underneath the staircase. So it was like hidden. You open the staircase, you do your cold plunge there, but you needed lighting, right? And controls and all the things that are going to make that cold plunge successful. And then we had a home recently that the crawl space was used for little kids to spy in the library, in the living room, and it's completely hidden. And they go in, but there was lighting, and actually they put the, I think it was Ketra, because it was like changing lights. The kids could play with all the lighting and with the controls, and there's a roller, and they were rolling around. They can spy on everybody, but hidden spaces. Hidden technology, it's kind of a thing that, people feel really proud of that too. They like the fact, and it's kind of like their bragging rights too, and they're giving a tour in their home. Yeah. Do you actually know where the speaker is or whatever it may be? Yeah,
it becomes part of the Lux feel too, exactly. One of the things you were talking about, the master bathroom, and we did a project where the homeowner wanted to know and wanted us to program Ketra lighting to have the different color temperatures and lumens that it would have in different places that she would go out.
Yeah.
So, she had like the Kravis Center, which is one of our hall, our performance hall. She had a restaurant that she frequented a lot. And so she had the little button that she would hit, the button that says Kravis Center, so that when she was getting dressed, she could get kind of a whole feel of what she looked like.
Exactly.
That's just hidden,
next level.
Right? That's the next level of what you can do with them. So, and you can do it with a lot of other light providers as well too. So
yeah, even exterior, there's a lot of speaker options that we used to that old-fashioned rock. It was like, does it look like a rock? No, but right. But now there's so many other ways of hiding, and even technology hidden. We had one that comes up from the pool, comes out, you can watch TV, goes back down in the ground. So people are looking more and more not to see the technology, but having it accessible when they need it. So
that is where we're going.
Yeah. Anything else anyone would like to add? No? Okay. Well, I hope you found some value. We'll be around for questions or anything, but I wish you luck, and hopefully you're getting some of this technology and implementing it and hiding it in your ceiling spaces. So, but thank you all for being a part of this, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks, Scott.